winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Will. Well, have you ever wondered, why are there so many different formats for the postseason, for the American professional sports leagues? Which ones really seem to do well and get it, and which ones probably need some optimization efforts? Well, if so, you're going to enjoy today's episode because we're going to break down several of them and offer some opinions on how to maximize each of them. But in the interim, please make sure you subscribe, share, and follow Two for the Win on your favorite platform. And want to give a shout out to Hard Rock Bet. You can see the link in the description if you'd like to sign up and put your money where your thoughts are in terms of outcomes on games or players. So thank you to Hard Rock Bet for sponsoring today's episode. Happy Fanatic Friday, Nick.
Happy Friday, Will, and our winners.
So here we go. We've been teasing about this for a few weeks now, and here we go about breaking down the postseason formats that the leagues have. You want to start with a particular one right off the bat?
I'm open. Let's start with NFL because it's our number one sport now.
Yep, sounds good. So, as you know, many of our winners know, the NFL, the top seeded team gets a 1 week bye, and then they seed the remaining six. Division winners get the preferential seeds first, and then best record for the wild cards are then seeded accordingly. But all but one team in each conference plays the first round of the playoffs. Obviously, it changes some of the final game of the season stuff, but I don't want to go too deep into it. We'll just, now that I set the stage on that, your thoughts. If we had it, maybe we do a rating system on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1, it's the most asinine type of format you could have, and 10, it's like perfection. How would you rate the Super Bowl seeding format?
I'll give it a 8 because I really like it. It's straightforward. It's easy. It doesn't make too complicated to do it. What I really like is the one, you win or go home kind of thing. I don't like long series. So that's what I like. I know football, it's such a different sport as hockey or basketball that it's pretty much impossible to do a long series like that because they cannot play back to back.
Right.
But it will be fun actually to see something back to back in football, so they stop complaining while making a Brazilian million of dollar. But anyway, that's another subject for another day. But I like the fact that it's quick. It starts and a month later you know who the Super Bowl team are. So you just it's literally a month. For a month you have those divisional rounds, then whatever it's called after, and then the conference championship. I mean the wild card, divisional, and conference. So it's going very fast. No, what I would say is the seeding. I believe they should be reseeding after the first game. So what I don't like, it's a little bit the fact that you always make the top an advantage for the top team. You should be seeding them, actually not reseeding. That's what I mean. So it means that you have the bracket and then you just go with it. If a team upset another team, they shouldn't be playing against the most difficult team in the second round. They should play against a team they should be landing with. That's what I mean by that.
So you wouldn't do reseeding?
I wouldn't reseeding. That's
Okay.
The opposite. Because right now they're reseeding, but then if you make an upset, great job. You have an upset. Now you play against an even more difficult team instead of staying in your line. That's what I would. My personal preference.
Yeah, I think the thing that seems a little bit unfair though, and we saw it this past year, which it doesn't happen like this every year, but this past year you had in the East, Detroit, the Eagles, and the Vikings. And the Vikings in particular, not that I shed a tear for them because everyone who listens to this podcast know how I feel about the Vikings, but it was kind of unfair. They had to go on the road, and let's say they would have won that game, they would have still been on the road. And versus if they're playing an inferior team, maybe to your point, you keep the seeding the same, but the team that gets the home game is the better
I agree.
team.
That's
That
what I
would be
meant.
a
Yeah.
little fair, I think.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that us 8 and 9 or 9 and 8 team always in the South, for example, with Tampa Bay, Atlanta, that kind of division winner is always the
Yeah.
lowest, but they get top seed because they win the division. I think we should go away from division ranking for the playoff. That's what I would like. The same way that NBA did, because NBA used to back in the day be by division. You win your division, you get automatically a 1 to 4 in the or 1 to 3 in each conference.
Yeah.
And they went away from this because some division are so much better than another. That makes no sense to. And I think the NFL should be doing the same thing. But once you are in your bracket, you stay in your bracket. You don't change based on that, because then it incentivizes, like, yeah, what's the incentive? When you win against a great team, great. Now you have a preferable
Another one.
matchup. No,
Yeah.
now you get the top seed to play against. I think that's not something that they already get a bye, the first seed. So they should not get and the bye and the lowest seed in the second round. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I get it. And I think the thing that we talked about last week about March Madness, and one of the fun as well as frustrating things is in one game, the better team doesn't always win because anything can happen in one game. And that's the same with the NFL. One game, ball goes bouncing the wrong way, and the better
Hmm.
team may not win, but that also adds to the excitement. To your point, you get through the playoffs a lot quicker. Each game has a lot more meaning because if you lose, you're done. Single elimination. So I think I would give it a 7 versus an 8,
Yeah, you're
only
right.
because um, I'd almost wish like just one team having the bye. You find that the last game of the regular season really is almost like an exhibition game a lot of times, unless there is a division at stake or some seeding. They used to have it where the top two teams had a bye, but the only way I think that would work now with the way they do the format is you have to add another playoff team, and then it starts to water it down a bit. So but I do think that teams who had a great record, so like the Minnesota Vikings, if they would have won that first playoff game on the road, they should have had the next game at home, assuming they would have been playing a team that had an inferior record. That's the one thing where I feel it's a little unfair for teams who did really well in the regular season, but were in a really tough division, and they kind of get penalized for that. But like the old adage goes, if you don't want to play on the road, then win your division, win your conference. So,
I agree. I agree. I will give it a. I will change my rating 7. I think it's fair what you said. 7 is more fair. The more I think about it. So yeah, let's go with 7. Let's
cool,
go.
cool.
Let's go next one. Let's go NBA. So the NBA, as you all probably know, they have the top 6 of each conference who automatically qualify for the playoff. Then seed number 7, 8, 9, and 10 are playing a first round kind of playing tournament where
Yeah, one
they
game.
play. Yeah, they play to know the winner of 7 against 8 are getting the 7th seed, and the winner 9 against 10 play the loser of 7 against 8 to get the 8th seed, and then the bracket is down. So the 8th seed, the East seed, and the Western Conference have the 8th seed as well. Then they play like forever, like a best of 7 game from first round, semifinal, championship, Eastern Conference, Western Conference championship, uh, com- um, like brackets, and then there's the NBA finals. So there's a long process to get there. I kind of like it because basketball you can play more often, and it allows some players to showcase some time that they may not be able to showcase during the regular season because nobody are watching, to showcase a little bit what they're able to do in the playoff. The problem is that it's almost impossible for a lower qualitative team to beat um, a better team, because you can beat them 1 time, maybe 2 times, but 4 times out of 7, usually the better team wins. And that's the problem we have with NBA. That's what I feel. That's why I would put a 6 for the NBA, because I think the NBA is still attractive on the playoff. Once the playoffs start, people are watching. Definitely when there's an upset on the first game, then everybody are watching. It's good for the betting. We have Hard Rock, as a sponsor, so we love to bet and we love people betting. I think it's
Yeah.
the kind of little game within the game is fun. So for that part, it's good because when you have an upset on the first game, you can bet your house on the second game that the team was been who was being
Yeah,
upset
yeah.
will come back strong in the second game. But anyway, so there are good things about it, but it's very very long, and it doesn't allow really a team with a lower qualitative roster to actually beat the other team. So that's the biggest flaws for me about the playoff. But go ahead, Will.
No, I agree. I think the 7 to 10 seed thing, I like what they're trying to do. I think for the casual fan, it's probably a little confusing, but I like anytime you have that real sense of urgency in a one and done type scenario, or in this case, two and done because you got to win 2 games. But um, and that's why I think when you get to a game 7 in an NBA playoff series, that's like the ultimate, right? Because now this is it, versus if somebody's up 3 games to 2, you don't know, if that game is going to be it or not. So, for the series. So yeah, I agree with you. I do think they used to have a format, not where they didn't have that 7 to 8, but that first round was a 5 game versus 7 game. And that was, uh, really cool, but also really frustrating because again, you could have a team that just got lucky, got hot, and they won 3 games and knocked a higher seed out of the playoffs. I think it back to like Denver Nuggets with Dikembe Mutombo against Sean Kemp and the Sonics, and he's finger wagging on the ground. Um, so I kind of like a shorter series in that first round just to again put some more intensity, but the NBA is a business. They want those added revenue games. They're going to make sure that they have the added revenue to go. The one thing, this is a really small thing in the structure of it, but I don't like it. I don't like the 2-3-2 format where you have when you get to the later stages, you got 2 games at home, you got 3 on the road, and then 2 games at home, because I think it actually disadvantages the higher seed because they used to have it where it was 2-2-1-1-1. So it would be the home team, the better seed would get the fifth and the seventh game, and then the road team or the lower seed had the sixth. I thought that was more fair. I know it puts more stress on travel and the logistics from the TV production perspective and stuff, but I just always felt that was a more fair format because to beat a team 2 games out of 3 in their home stadium isn't the easiest thing to do in the NBA. And so, like, let's say you get a split in the first game. I mean, they could be down 3 games to 2 heading into game 6 and 7. Now, granted, it's at home, but that it almost puts them in a more of a disadvantage at game 6. And then if it does go to game 7, then the advantage goes back to the home team. So I would like them to bring back the 2-2-1-1-1 format versus 2-3-2.
Yeah, I like that idea as well. I like that idea. And something I didn't think through all of the detail of the logistic, but I do believe that now with the NBA Cup, the winner of the NBA Cup should get a lock on the playoffs. That's what I believe should be. So the first two
Ooh, I like that.
the
Yeah.
first 2 year we had Lakers and your Bucks. So the Bucks are in the mix for 4 or 5 now, and the Lakers last year they were a playing team in case that happens. So I don't know the logistic because if a team wins that are dominant in during the regular season, I don't know how to impact really the ranking and stuff. But they should have the winner of the NBA Cup having an automatic bid in the playoff. That will incentivize the team that that may not be positioned the best in the regular season based on their roster to actually put more emphasis into the start of the season. It will increase even more the quality of the first months and a half of the season. And then based on that, imagine if you have a team like San Antonio Spurs or like a team who is like Chicago Bulls or something like that who would win right now. Well, they would put pressure on team who are above them, but they are like in the mix to actually intensify earlier in the regular season to position themselves to be in the playoffs. So I don't know the logistic, but I would like to see something like that.
Yeah, I like that idea. And I'll give another one that's really quirky, but it would add a lot of fuel for the sports talk radio. The team who wins the NBA Cup, they definitely get in the playoffs. So if maybe there's a play-in game between them and the very last seed, so you add one additional play-in game. But what if, to your point, teams that won the NBA Cup already in the playoffs, what if they could choose to go up a seed or down a seed or keep it the same based on the matchup? So like if the Bucks are like 5, they could pick the 4, or if they like the matchup at the 3 seed better, they drop the 6. Like that would be nuts. Like people would be going crazy because if they change their seed and that backfires on them, they're like, oh. If they change the seed and it works for them, they look brilliant. If they stay the same and it backfires, it would just be madness from a sports talk radio. And since we're in a podcast business and media, I would love to have that to talk about it, but I doubt that would ever happen. But that's my quirky idea out of all of these. Let the NBA Cup winner determine up a seed, down a seed, or stay the same,
And that's
or
why we're a
automatically get a
podcast.
play
That's
in.
why we are in the entertainment business, and we're not in a board in any kind of league, because that would make a hell to get that approved from anyone. But
Oh,
but
I
yeah,
know.
I feel you. That would be something interesting. But I think that and then the final thing to improve the All-Star game where we talk about that, I would put East against West, and the winner of East against West is hosting the NBA Finals regarding of seed. That's something that I think would increase the quality of the All-Star game and incentivize people to actually play harder. So that's something that I would also change. But that's about it about NBA. Which go ahead for the third sport. You can choose.
Well, let's go with I guess the third major sport, depending on someone's preference. I guess you could still say is MLB, although I don't know. It still seems to be struggling for the bit. With that Major League Baseball, again, they did something similar to the NBA with some of those lower seeds having a play-in opportunity. The thing that I don't like about the Major League Baseball is in that those playing games, you got some really good teams that maybe knocked out after just 2 games because it's a best of 3, and that's a little, I don't know. I just feel like if I look through the past, and I'll be totally uh, upfront about this, like the Milwaukee Brewers has made the playoffs, I think 5 out of the last 6 years or 5 out of the last 7 years, and and it's worked for them and against them, those little short play-in series. Uh, and I think because baseball, there's such a disparity between big markets and small market. If you're a small market team that finally put together a good year and you get in the playoffs, you'd like to think that they could have more than one home playoff game, for revenue purposes. They really need it to try to stay competitive. So uh, that's not an easy answer because you change the format of that. It has implications. It really draws out the baseball playoffs. But I don't like the fact that you could have, because of the way that league is structured with the have and have nots, that you could finally have a small market team do well, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Seattle, pick whatever small market you want. And they may only get one home playoff game after a very successful regular season. So, but I think as they get into the later stages, it's more traditional, with the 7 game series. And I mentioned nothing is as exciting as the NBA seventh game. MLB is close. It used to be the most exciting thing, but, it doesn't have the same cachet that it used to, but it's still, there's a game 7. One that just jumps into my head right off the bat was when the Cubs played the Indians for the World Series at Game 7. That was crazy because of the implications and the Cubs finally winning after a gazillion years. So, those are still exciting, but I don't know. That's my thought. I don't know. I don't really have a good solution to how to fix it because you'd have to elongate the playoffs. But I just don't like the fact that you play 162 games and you might only get one home playoff game. That seems.
Well, glad you asked, because you don't have a solution. I do, so
Okay,
that's
great.
a good thing for me. What I was gonna say is that the first round, when they have like the best of 3, I would make it a best of 5. And how to do that? I would play twice the same day. So I would have an early
Oh, like a
game.
doubleheader.
Everybody go to a double header. Like whoever has the highest seeds, they get the starts day one. They play, for example, the Brewers have the highest seed. They play 2 games at home back to back. Early game at 1 and at 8 o'clock. So they play those, and then the next game they play away. The same format. If it's 2-2, you go back to the Brewers for the final game, day 3. It would not make the season, the playoff season, longer, but it would allow the home team to have at least 2, maybe 3 if you are the top seed of the 2 teams, and you have 2 revenue stream because you play twice. Baseball you can play like 5 times a day. So let's do 2 games, like 1 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and it would generate revenue that way, and it will also allow like TV deal to actually increase because you can have more games during the same day.
Love that idea. Kudos, brother. That is a really good one. I hope somebody passes this along to a baseball exec. We have some listeners who do have some connections in MLB. Forward this on. This is a great idea.
Yeah,
And it
so
solves the problem what I mentioned with the revenue piece.
yeah, because the pitcher is really the only one who needs rest, and they never play back to back anyway. So that would
Yeah.
not make a huge problem on that. The reliever maybe have to play back to back, but one inning maybe. So
Yeah. I will say I know this isn't in the playoff format, but I do like that they have the pitch clock now. It makes baseball just a little bit easier
absolutely,
to watch.
it go faster. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, good. We have a solution for baseball. Next.
Nicely done, sir. So then hockey, I don't know. I don't really see anything wrong with it. I wouldn't
I agree.
categorize it as great. Like I wouldn't say it's a 10 of 10 or a 9 of 10, but it's been pretty stable. It's kind of the more
It works.
traditional formats and stuff like that. So I'm cool with it. I don't have anything that pops into mind to really change it dramatically. But I don't know if you have any strong thoughts on the matter, but I think they're good.
I was gonna say the same thing. Like the hockey, they're going upwards. So MLB start getting like, they were going down. They start getting a little bit better with all those big deals, people. But still, it's not there. NHL, wow, this is the sport that when I moved to the US, I had no idea about. I knew about what it was, but I never watched 1 minute of that game. And a few years back, actually, when the Vegas, the night starts, I'm saying, oh, I'm gonna take a look, and I went to see a game, and oh, this is so much fun.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I was not really watching on TV. No, I watch it during the playoff. I still don't watch during the regular season unless it's live. But during the playoff, I watch the playoff. I literally watch, and it's exciting. I mean, last year with the Brewers was the best ever regular season, getting down in the first round.
The Bruins,
The Bruins with the
Yeah.
Florida Panthers, who like won last year. 2 years ago, it was against my Vegas, Knights. I mean, it's fun. I mean, I'm excited about that. When the Nashville were playing well against Chicago Blackhawk, it was an amazing series. So, I mean, I remember some of those series the last few years, and so I'm getting more and more into it. And I think their format is fine it's harder logistically when you have to drag all those freaking massive, like equipment and stuff like that. So I can see why it's hard to do a 2-2-1-1-1 than to do a 2-3-2, for example. I can see that better. In NBA, I think it should be easier to fix. NHL is going to be a lot harder to do that based on all the logistic and the dragging equipment and all of that. But
Yeah, and I would say we have some listeners who are really avid hockey fans. So if what I say you strongly disagree with, please put it in the comments on the platform or send us an email. But I think out of all 4 major sports, hockey is the one where the home ice advantage is the least important, or the home court advantage. I can't remember. It seems like it happens a lot where there's a game 7 and the road team wins. It just by the nature of the sport, I don't think it matters quite as much as it does to say basketball with the game 7, football with single elimination, and even baseball to a certain extent. So I agree that 2-3-2 seems to work in hockey for the reasons you said. Plus, I think home ice isn't as important.
No, absolutely. No, I really agree. I just want to say two words actually. The first word is about the March Madness. So we know March Madness. It's we talked about it last week. It's phenomenal. My bracket is busted, but what's new? And so
Mine both, brother.
I mean, everybody's bracket are busted.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I really like the fact that it's a one and done and it's so long. I have no problem with 68 teams, for example. And if we should go 128 teams, I think that's the beauty of this. You just go bam, 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 stop. But And I'm sorry if I take a little bit more time because I want to say something about what I think, what I really love, and what I like to implement on everything, if possible. I particularly like the double elimination game that the playoff for baseball, college baseball, do. I started
Uh,
watching that a few years back, and I watch every year in Omaha. For people listening from India, Indiana, no India, from Europe, from Africa, because we have people Asia who listen from those continents who has like no idea where Omaha is. So that's
yeah,
the thing in Nebraska. That's just a state that nobody ever goes. Well, that's a state where they have the yearly college baseball tournament, and so that's big thing for 2-3 weeks during I think it's in June as well, and it's July. It's amazing time where all the best college team in baseball go and then play the double elimination, meaning you can have one issue where you nothing works and you lose the first game, you still have one chance. So you go in another bracket and you cannot lose anymore. So you have 2-3 games in a row. You need to win them all in order to qualify for the quarterfinal. And I love that thing because everybody can have a bad day. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve to win. But I like the double, not more than that, double elimination. But it puts you in a situation where you will play 3 other teams who are usually better than the first one you played, and you need to win them all in order to qualify for the quarterfinal. And I really like this format a lot because it gives more chances and more power for smaller team to actually make an upset or two. And so that's
yeah.
something I really like. I don't know how logistically it's possible, but I love to have that functionality for some and NCAA basketball having something like that. I don't know how is that possible, but I would like to see something where you have a top team like number one Virginia a few years back who fell against the 16, or even more recently another number one seed who went down, or number two seed. Well, you can have that and then actually coach the team mentally of fixing a couple of things and then maybe go on a run to win it.
Yeah.
So that's something I like.
Yeah, I agree. That's an interesting idea, and yeah, you're right. It does make the College World Series much more interesting by having that, so they could incorporate it in. The key will always be, do the TV media rights companies make enough money on the format? They always have to make sure they're taking care of who's paying the bills, and
More
it's really
teams,
not
more
the
teams,
stadium
more money.
tickets, it's the media rights deals. So
More teams,
yeah,
more people, more
yeah,
more
yeah,
money.
yeah. I agree. Nice one. Well, there you go. Any other creative thoughts? You've been on a roll.
No,
You
I
have
mean, you mentioned before we record that you love the World Cup format, and
yeah,
I agree. The
yeah,
beauty of a World Cup format, but it's hard probably to replicate, but it's to have a tournament to start. So you have 4 teams who play against each other, so 3 games. The top 2 automatically qualify, and the best third qualify for the first round, which is the round of 16. Then you have the
mm,
round of 8, and then you have the quarterfinal, semifinal, final. But it's making everything longer because you have to play much more game in the tournament format before
yeah.
you get into the direct elimination. But it's amazing. It's every 4 years. Everybody loves it. Even if you don't like soccer, you follow World Cup because the intensity is pretty high.
Oh yeah, no, I really enjoy it, and I've really gotten into the World Cup. I would say the last 20 years, and it's a lot of fun. And the other thing I mentioned, I know it's that one's like way harder, but I love relegation because teams that are perpetually terrible, they should get punished. That would really change some of these owners and how they spend money. You look at Cincinnati Bengals right now, and that's kind of the silly things they're considering doing based on money. Some of these other ones, like you would change that basketball for sure, where you have the tanking and stuff like that. But to your point that you mentioned off air was you need a second league in order to do that, and then it would impact the draft. So maybe we'll touch that in more depth in a future episode because that one would take a little bit longer to discuss. But I do like the concept of relegation, and that would keep
Hmm.
ownership and the GMs a little more accountable on putting quality product on the field for fans who are buying tickets, buying jerseys, all that stuff, traveling, to see the games. So
Absolutely. And the way they do, just, I mean, we can talk on another episode, but the way things are moving in Europe the last 20 years is with the billionaire on this planet who wants to buy a team. They cannot afford, or they don't want to buy, or there is no team on sale who are actually great. So what they do, they buy a team in the third or fourth division in England, Italy, Spain, or those powerful soccer countries. And then they start there. They build a crazy team in third, fourth league, so they win majority of their game, and then they go from fourth to three to second league, and then they get into the first league, and where they have the big money. And that's what happened with Manchester City 25 years ago. They were like nowhere. Then a billionaire took ownership of it, and now Manchester City is one of the best team in the world, and it's because they did that. But so many teams did the same thing. You know, they come from low, and they just usually oil money, and then they just go up. Chelsea did the same thing at some point with Abramovich. So you have that's the quality of it. The difference that in US you don't have other leagues. You have the major league, and then you have the development league, but the development league are owned by professional leagues. So that's not something that you can elevate and put the professional league down. So it would take forever to get there, but I think if we can create more league, it would create more opportunity for players who are not level to get to the NBA, but maybe playing, instead of going to Europe, playing in second or third league in US, and have the opportunity for those teams to play to go up. But it's a lot of money and a lot of things that needs to happen, so I'm not sure how it's feasible.
Yeah, I know. Bring back the XFL and He Hate Me. Remember that guy who had He Hate Me on the back of his jersey? There we go. That's the relegation league.
So what does your T-shirt say, Will? I cannot read very well. I drink to
make other people more interesting.
You see, that's what I have to deal with.
Yeah, you are a patient soul, my friend. You are a patient soul.
I wouldn't put patient my name together, but I'm glad that you say that.
Well, there you have it, winners. That wraps up another Fanatic Friday episode. If you have some creative thoughts on how to adjust some of the major sports playoff formats or ideas to make it more interesting, please send us a line or make a comment on your favorite platform. We'd love to hear it, and we'll even give you a shout out on the air. But in the interim, please be sure to subscribe, share, and follow Two for the Win on your favorite platform. And thanks again to Hard Rock Bet for sponsoring today's episode. That'll wrap up this Fanatic Friday. We'll see you next week, winners.
Bye, winners.
Take care.